story on that.
This will be good.
Hello, everyone. This is Main Joe coming at you from Mojo Studio.
Welcome back.
Beautiful Salt Lake City, Utah. It's another podcast evening here, Sunday night. Me and Mojo hanging out, kicking back.
It's very
talking
typical.
about different things.
Sundays are typical for us to
It's the best
cast.
night for us to cast. We have lives and things to do, and this just works for us. And I'm glad it does because I'm having a ball doing it.
And if any of you can join us, we can mix up our schedule. We've done a cast on a Monday before, haven't we?
Absolutely. And I was thinking, because we want to stay anonymous and everything, it may not work for people to necessarily come to your studio to cast with us. But
fair.
we do have the ability to do remotes. So if they want to remote in, that way we can stay anonymous. They can be part of the podcast. I think that could be a cool way to get more guests in and things like that.
Yeah, well said. I wish we had said that in a much earlier podcast. That's very true.
This
go
podcast
anywhere.
is still pretty new, dude.
Yeah,
it's early
true.
enough.
Very true.
We're going to improve this as much as we can, little by little, step by step. So I wanted to talk to you about a couple things on this segment. One being healthcare. I know we've beat this horse to death a million times, but I do have some legit questions that I wanted to run by Mojo and see if he could help me understand it a little bit better and maybe help you understand it a bit better too. The other was the big news of the week was Mueller's testimony in front of Congress.
Yeah.
Or a committee, I guess, a judicial committee, maybe. Probably.
I think so. Yeah, it was a House committee. It was not a Senate committee.
Yes, it was a House committee. Yes, and I think it was the judicial committee, I believe. So I'd like to talk about that a little bit too. So I want to start with healthcare. You know how we talk about Bernie's healthcare plan? How it'll be? They say it's going to be cheaper than what we're paying now. So basically, what the gist is that we pay more for healthcare than all these other countries that have healthcare for all. So we pay more per capita for our healthcare than Canada does, and they're all covered. Then Norway does, and they're all covered. Then Sweden does, and they're all covered. So how is that flipping possible? Well, because corporations making money off of healthcare, which just doesn't seem right. It doesn't add up.
Yeah,
that's part of it. Got to be part of it.
It's a huge part.
So my question is, let's for sake of argument, let's say Bernie gets elected, he implements his plan. If we're paying more now for healthcare than these other countries, and this plan's going to be less and it's going to cover everybody, are my taxes going up?
There's the question, listeners.
Because if the government's going to be paying less than they are now, then there should be no reason for my taxes to go up, right?
And put it in more black and white terms. I should have less taken out of my paycheck every 2 weeks.
But that's going to be
less expensive.
That's going to be because you're not going to need that insurance anymore, right?
Yeah. That's what I've heard too. Main Joe, I've heard that same thing. Listeners, let us know what you've heard.
I haven't heard Bernie say that he's going to raise my taxes to pay for health care. Have you?
No,
I haven't heard that.
No, all I've heard is how are we going to pay for it?
From the right.
Exactly. Yes.
From the left, Bernie has a plan. I wish I could remember specifically how he said it was going to get paid for.
Wall Street tax. I heard. I don't know.
But then again, I go back to my question. Well, if it's cheaper than what we're paying now, then there shouldn't be any new taxes levied, even against Wall Street, right? I mean,
yes, there's no new tax needed. Every American's paycheck is going to have more money in it.
That sounds too good to be true.
Well, you get to the heart of the question, Main Joe, is where did we hear this? What headline did we see? What article did we read? Where did this come from?
I think this needs a little more research from me, and I'm going to try and bring it back to this podcast to kind of let you know, because this is a legit question I have that kind of bothers me a little bit. It keeps me up. It doesn't keep me up at night, but that's the saying. It keeps me up at night.
Well, it's in our heads, yeah.
Because I'm an engineer, so things have to add up, right? And so if we're going to be paying less as a government for healthcare, then everyone should have more money in their paycheck because they're not paying for health insurance anymore because they don't need it, because they're fully covered, and then my taxes won't go up because we're paying less. The government's paying less than they do now. So that's how I see it.
I guess the taxes actually go down. You don't have the health insurance taken out of your check every 2 weeks.
Theoretically, it should. If the government's paying less for health insurance than they are now, then they can give us a little tax cut.
So, there we go.
I'm going to look into it, and I'll get back to you, listeners, to see what exactly Bernie's plan is and how that's all going to, how he sees it flushing out. That's
us trying to be fair, listeners.
Yeah,
we've read some headlines.
Fair,
we've
I'm a little confused.
Yeah, not sure.
Sure.
Would Bernie's plan be cheaper? Forgive the vulgar term. Let me use less expensive. Would Bernie's plan be less expensive than the current plan? That's the question in a nutshell, isn't it?
Yeah, that's essentially where I was coming from.
Yeah.
So you haven't heard anything to really help me or to say yay or nay?
No, I've only heard things that support your statement.
Did you specifically hear that he's going to pay for it with a Wall Street tax, though? Or is that what
I did hear?
You did hear that? Okay.
If I may, Wall Street transaction tax.
Yeah.
When they move $1 billion across the street.
Or is it? Or I think it might even be those micro transactions. They have computers that do so many transactions per second that never get taxed.
Fair, that might be true.
I think that's part of it.
Yeah,
but I could be wrong.
I don't know.
So I'm going to look that up. I'm going to get back to you, and we'll talk about it next podcast evening.
It's because we care about you, the home
I don't want to mislead you.
Yeah, we have the same questions. Is this stuff true?
We're average Joes, man.
Yeah, would it be less expensive to cover everybody?
That's what I heard.
As opposed to the system we have now. Would it be less expensive?
Yeah. So on to the next topic, and that's be the Mueller testimony this week. And basically, Mueller went in wanting this report that he wrote, 400 pages of report from 2 years of investigating Trump and his campaign and all that. He wanted that to speak for himself. Mueller didn't really want to do this, but Congress subpoenaed him, so you kind of got to go in.
Well, if you're a patriot like Mueller
if you respect the law at all, hello.
If you respect the government of the United States, and then that flies in the face, Main Joe.
We're a nation of laws, right? That's one of the reasons why it kind of works.
Have you heard the phrase? I support my country always. I support my government when it deserves it.
Yeah.
And what was Mueller's thinking there? Is this just gotten out of hand, you idiots? You hired me to go do this job, and I
think what convinced him to come is he understood that not everyone's going to read that report. More people are going to catch his testimony on, YouTube, CNN.
Fair enough.
It was important to get the report out to the public so that they can judge for themselves.
Yeah.
Was the fact that Trump asked his attorney to fire Mueller, was that obstructing of justice?
And then asking him to file a document.
If that would have been Nixon, the answer would be yes. But because it's Trump, for some reason, it's wishy-washy. I don't get that, and it frustrates me to no end.
Well, the one that frustrates me is, I think, the one that the Republicans will get away with here. And that is, Trump knew he didn't collude or conspire. He knew it. So any attempt he made to stop the investigation was totally warranted.
What a great spin that was. I was like, wow, you guys took that top and went, whoa.
Whoa, man.
These guys are good, man. They are the masters of spin. It's like when Kellyanne Conway was asked about the chant and everything about how he said they should go home back to where they came from. I forget how it went exactly, but she didn't answer the question. She said, "Where does your ancestors come from, or where are you coming from?" And she's very good at spin, man.
Spin is amazing. Well, Main Joe, I'd look at it this way: that let's say you were not only accused of but arrested for murder. And then would you do anything to obstruct the investigation into your murder case?
Hell no.
I would say no.
I would try and do my best to make the truth come out. And be as clear and as precise as possible.
I would help every possible way.
Mueller said even the written testimony he got from Trump had lies in it.
He used very delicate word, incomplete or
misleading. He tried to interview Trump for over a year for this case. They wouldn't let Trump do it because they knew Trump would lie before he even got halfway through his testimony.
Well, he was told it's a perjury trap. What does that even mean, perjury trap?
It means that their client can't tell the truth is what it means.
If you go in there and tell the truth...
He doesn't even know what the truth is at this point, I don't think.
Oh, yeah, he does.
You give him so much more credit than I give him for. I think this guy is pretty much a senile idiot at this point. That's really how I see him. Am I off base? Am I totally wrong? You think he's that sharp that he knows what he's doing?
I can't say you're wrong. I can't say you're wrong, but I can give you another perspective. A way to look at him is he is Dr. Evil from the Mike Myers movies. You know, it's some kind of a comic character now at this point. He's a comic character.
A human dust storm, man. I don't know which end is up. It's crazy.
That's well said, too. A human dust storm. That's very well said.
It's like Pigpen and Peanuts.
Pigpen didn't have enough appearances, man. I wanted him in more.
I loved Pigpen.
I loved Pigpen, man. He must not have had good parents. Pigpen must have had bad parents, man.
Maybe he was just poor, dude. Maybe he was just poor.
Yeah.
Or maybe he had other issues, body odor issues or something. I had a friend growing up whose nose just always seemed to be running, man, always. And it wasn't like clear snot. It was like green booger snot, man. And I was like, dude, what's wrong with your nose? I love the guy. I grew up with him. He was my best friend, man. But he had some kind of nasal issue, man.
Well, you're forgetting one thing about Pigpen, though, is that kid had fleas jumping off of him.
I just remember the dust swirling around him. And he had his Halloween costume on. And hey, Pigpen, he said, how did you know it was me?
Whoever Pigpen lived with was negligent.
Maybe he had a lot of cats. I don't know. Don't go jumping to conclusions, man. Pigpen's my buddy. I wasn't the cleanest kid growing up.
So Mueller's report... We get back to that really quick.
What did you think of the whole ordeal? I mean, it's amazing. I'm seeing like the Blaze TV on YouTube spin it one way and the left spins it another way, and it's just amazing. From what I saw, I thought Mueller laid it out pretty clear that Trump broke the law, if for nothing else, for obstruction of justice. Maybe the Russian thing didn't pan out exactly, but it wasn't a witch hunt. I mean, how many people are in jail now because of this investigation? I don't call that a witch hunt at all.
The most damning parts of it for me, as a progressive, listeners, I'm a progressive. I'm certainly not a Republican or a conservative. The most damning parts for me were what we discussed during the chill session was when a Republican was questioning Mueller and said, after President Trump leaves office, he can be charged with a crime.
Yes.
Yes. So you're telling me that you can charge President Trump with obstruction of justice after he leaves office?
Yes.
That right there said the whole
That's
story.
all you need to know.
Said the whole
Impeach
story.
the guy already. Jeez, get the proceedings going.
And it also laid bare how deferential Mueller has been toward Congress and our entire system of government.
Well, yeah.
He has been respectful of our system of government.
And you were saying the reason why this was because, I forget what you said exactly, but basically what it boils down to is there was some DOJ memo written back in the 60s, maybe the 70s.
70s, I think, yeah.
And it basically said you can't indict a sitting president. And that, a memo is what Mueller was going off of. Mueller was never going to indict Trump, no matter what kind of evidence he saw, which kind of pisses off Bill Maher. Bill Maher's like, look, dude, this is the time to step up for the country.
You had your chance to be historic.
It kind of pissed Maher off, but Mueller was like, nope, the DOJ memo that we've been operating off of for decades is what I'm going to operate off of, and I'm not going to indict a sitting president. But he found 10 cases of obstruction of justice.
And he laid them all out. And how much clearer could he be other than to show up to his testimony and say, Congress, would you fucking do your job now? I just laid it all right in front of you. Will you go do your job now? Could he have said that?
I think that's part of it. But again, I think part of the reason why they drug him in, that poor guy, he's 74 years old, he looks tired as hell. is because they wanted to get the contents of the report out there, and this was one of the best ways to do it. Have a hearing, have the news focus on it, have the pundits talk about it. It's one of the best ways to do it. Mm-hmm. And Mueller didn't come off totally clean either. From what I understand, he had like 120 parlays where he said, "I'm not going to answer that," or I can't comment on that because it's under investigation.
Well over 100.
And they didn't talk too much about that. But,
I heard some talk about that.
I don't know if that's enough to sway my opinion as far as whether or not we should impeach Trump.
Not at all. No, he was protecting other investigations, and he was protecting witnesses. And,
I'll take your. I'll take that.
As far as I know,
till I know better, that's the way I'll approach it. Then, because.
Another thing I love too is the way a lot of these Republicans have tried to smear Mueller, including Trump. You know, in many tweets, and. Republicans are all about patriotism and serving your country and being a hardworking, upstanding individual. Who is better at that than Robert Mueller? Vietnam War veteran, worked.
He was a Marine.
Worked his ass off
in
law school.
However, don't bring up Mueller to Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore says he has a beef with Mueller because Mueller was a key player in the lead up to the Iraq War, dude. Mueller went up there and I don't know if he lied or if he was misinformed, but basically he helped us get into that war, and it pisses Jimmy Dore off. I don't know the details.
I'm going to have to study
that. But I'm not giving Mueller a total 100%. He's a legend of a patriot pass. Because the Iraq War pisses me off as much as, if not more than, the Vietnam War. And I think someone should have went to jail for that shit, and no one did.
Nobody did.
And Obama's partly to blame for that, because he was the one that could have done it, you know. But he was like, nope, I don't want to look at the past. I want to look at the future, which I can respect, because I'm a solution finder. I try not to do the blame game. But man, leading us into war like that, under false pretenses, against a sovereign nation, it's tough for me to swallow.
You bring up another incredibly challenging topic when it comes to American foreign policy over the past few decades. The Iraq War, at the outset, when it was first being launched, I was absolutely the same, totally against it 100%. What are you doing? Are you crazy? This is corrupt. And then I listened to a couple of pundits, just one or two, not many. The foremost among them was Christopher Hitchens, and he expanded my worldview on things. So he did not make me a supporter of the Iraq War. That did not happen. Overall, by percentages, I'm still opposed to the Iraq War. I'm definitely in your camp on that one.
Okay.
But I did expand a little bit.
Softened you somewhat.
Softened, I guess, is a word.
Well, do you put it in the same category as Vietnam as far as epic mistakes go?
Great question.
Great,
challenging
huge
question.
Loss of life for no reason whatsoever that we can.
No,
see?
No, I don't. I'm not going to put the Iraq War, with my limited knowledge at this current time.
Where are you at?
I won't put it in the same
category
as huge blunders like the Vietnam War.
Really? Okay, wow. And so if in order to kind of get where you're coming from, I should read Christopher Hitchens?
No, I would recommend some YouTube videos of his debates.
Okay.
Where he's on stage against somebody who is fully against the Iraq War, and Christopher Hitchens is fully in support of the Iraq War.
Really?
And his eloquence and reasoning just made it made me forgive me for listeners for sound like a fanboy, but it made me bow down a little bit to say, wow, these are good points I had
I'll
not
try
heard
and
before.
Note to self when you're editing this podcast, Manjo. Look up some Christopher Hitchens debates on the Iraq War.
And the best debate was Christopher Hitchens against Mark Danner.
Okay.
That was the best one.
And listener, I encourage you to do the same.
Please do.
Please do. Expand your horizons. Try and get information from different sources. And then make up your own mind based on things. Don't just accept what they say carte blanche. Is that the right term?
Yes, indeed. Yeah, well stated. Exactly. Challenge what you think you know about it. If you're coming into this podcast and you are 100% fully against the Iraq War, I beg you to challenge yourself by listening to some Christopher Hitchens.
Mojo just did that for me. I've been challenged, and I'm going to accept the challenge, and because I put it right in the same category at the moment
as Vietnam.
Yeah. Huge blunder, false pretenses, great loss of life for no reason. Mm-hmm. Very frustrating. And
I hadn't really been challenged with the Vietnam-Iraq War thing before, Joe. So I thank you for that, because that is a very stark way to put it, a very vivid way to phrase this. Mm-hmm. And please remember, listeners and Main Joe, that I still am against the Iraq War. It was a mistake.
Right.
I still believe that was a mistake, but I'm not as what's the word? Fervent
good word.
On that as I was before Hitchens.
Good to know. All right. So anything else on Mueller? Let's see. So Mueller went in. He basically let the report talk for him. He stumbled a bit, I guess. I haven't heard too much about that, but not enough for me to say the investigation is a witch hunt.
Yeah.
Not even remotely.
Totally agree.
And
well, may I shift this one slightly to Bill Barr, and the way that
Attorney General,
our current Attorney General,
talk about some spin, eh?
Didn't he essentially come out and say because Trump knew he was innocent, he could not commit obstruction of justice?
I don't know if he said that, but he said the report exonerated Trump. Trump never read the report. Trump heard that, and he went off to the races.
Yeah.
He went, I'm 100% exonerated, and he repeated it ad nauseum. And he wasn't 100% exonerated, not even remotely.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm going to give a slant here, Main Joe, is I would prefer Obama as president over Donald Trump. I would prefer Obama. That's the slant I'm going to give. Now you know where I sit.
Well, I would too, but after Obama's 8 years and some of the things he pulled, I'm not a huge Obama fan anymore, quite frankly. I mean, I thought he was a great speaker and he had great ideas and he filled me full of hope, as he did a whole bunch of other people in this country. But when it came right down to it, I felt like he dropped the ball on a number of occasions. And I'll repeat him again. I've said it before. The Flint, Michigan thing, I think he dropped the ball. The union strikes and teacher strikes in Wisconsin, I felt like he dropped the ball. He never said boo.
The crash. He didn't do anything about the crash.
And the crash, I thought he did his best on the crash. I mean, the bottom line, the bottom line was we recovered faster than I thought we would after losing jobs at that rate and everything. Sure, we had to give banks huge amounts of money to make it happen, and that kind of didn't sit great with me, but it worked. It seems to have worked. So
well, he could have gone after the architects of the crash.
Yeah,
he could have done that, and he didn't.
Yeah, he didn't.
Not one bit. And some of them he appointed to high-level positions.
And now they say because nothing changed, it could happen again, and I'm not looking forward to that day.
I still prefer Obama to Trump,
Yep,
though.
absolutely.
You too?
Any day, any day. Trump,
Would you rather have George W. Bush than Trump right now? Main Joe had to take a breath on
this is a tough one because Trump hasn't got us into a war yet. I'm really anti-war.
Fair.
That's why I love Tulsi so much. She's so anti-war, and no one's talking anti-war. We used to be a country of peace. Growing up, I always thought we were the good guys. I want to get back to that, man. Maybe it's not even possible when we spend more money on our military than the next 10 countries combined.
I've heard 10, I've heard 11, I've heard
and
7.
6 of them are allies. It's
6 of them are our allies.
Fuck. We're getting close to the numbers. The numbers we're given aren't exact. We're going by memory here.
And by headlines, too.
Exactly. It could be fake news, but I haven't heard anything to refute that.
We spend north of $700 billion a year. The next highest one, I believe, is China, that spends $120 billion a year.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And then Russia, that spends $106 billion.
Maybe,
and then Saudi Arabia, and then India, whatever it is. I've heard nothing to refute that we spend more than the next 7, 8, 10, 11 countries combined.
Right.
And most of them are our allies. Please, to Joe's listeners, let us wake up to this reality.
Wake up to your country's foreign policy. I mean, it's not good. It's not a shining example to anybody or anything.
Well, Main Joe, if we cut the military budget in half just for 10 years, what could we do with that money? Just for 10 years.
I'm glad you brought this up.
And then bring it right back up after 10 years expire, or maybe just 5 years.
What has been,
just go 5 years.
What's been filtering through my brain is like, okay, so we're spending more on our military than anything else in this country. Why is that? Well, it's like one of the only things we make anymore in this country are bombs, weapons, things of that nature that we sell to Saudi Arabia and anybody else who has the money. Israel. F-16s. And I thought to myself, what if we do cut that budget?
Just in half,
you know what's
just
going to
for
happen?
5 years.
Well, I didn't know what was going to happen, but then I heard this news story that because Boeing has grounded those 737s because of that autopilot issue they've got, it's affected the GDP of the U.S. So if we start cutting that military budget and people start losing their jobs making bombs and guns and shit, our GDP is going to fall off big time, man. How much of our economy is based on that kind of government spending?
Maybe
if that ain't some sort of socialism, I don't know what is.
Yeah, exactly.
So if we want to get that budget down, which I do, we're going to have to do it smartly and I think incrementally because we're just too tied into it now at this point. You know what I mean? You follow what I'm saying?
And I love what you're saying about that.
It's
these
tricky
people,
business.
They can be retrained in how to draw blood or how to fix a helicopter engine.
Or let's
something.
manufacture something else. I don't know.
Yeah,
Trump said we'd bring back manufacturing jobs. He never said how. He just said he was, and he hasn't. And so I'm still waiting.
Ain't coming back.
I don't think so, man. And automation is part of the problem, and corporations making too much money with cheap labor overseas is the other part of the problem.
And here in America. The $8 an hour burger flippers at McDonald's and
Amazon order fillers.
Yeah, shelf stalkers at Walmart.
Those are the best jobs out
here
there.
too. Well, they're the most plentiful.
Yeah.
They're certainly the most plentiful.
If you don't have a college education, or even if you do, and there's just not jobs out there for you.
Well, I would be doing the same thing. If I had no other choice, I'd be working at Walmart and being on publicly funded health care because I would have no other choice.
I worked with a guy. We were both programmers. He actually hired me, and I left before him, but he left shortly after me. And I kept in touch with some of the people in that office I used to work with, and they said he ended up working at Walmart in the tech center because the electronics center because he couldn't find a job. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He's a programmer. He made more than me. He hired me, and I make decent money. Lower middle class money, Yeah. I don't make middle class money or higher upper middle class money. I make lower middle class money.
Yeah, yeah. And we live well. We live very well.
Yeah. My only beef with this whole situation is I would just call me a wimp, call me a snowflake. I don't care, but I'd like a little bit better of a social safety net. That's kind of where I'm at. I want to know that I'm not going to lose everything I've worked this hard for over all these years, and all the education I've got, all the education I've paid for, and all the student loans I've paid off. And I want to know that all that wasn't for nothing because of some medical illness or
a car crash. Yeah. Do you remember one of the speeches that Ronald Reagan gave well before he was president? I think he was still governor of California at the time.
Well, that's way before I noticed him. But
yeah.
Try me.
The Republicans love this one. It's one of their rallying cries. It's one of their anthems. Essentially, Reagan came out and said, well, I don't want to see the day where, my grandson is bouncing his grandson on his knee and talking about back in the day when men were free. Do you remember anything along these lines? Kind of.
Not yet.
No. I paraphrased there, of course, but what Reagan was speaking out against was Medicare.
Really?
He was speaking out against Medicare, saying, well, if this goes through, then one day you'll be bouncing your grandbaby on your knee saying, remember back when men were free? Do you remember back before Medicare? You know, that was his big thing that he was opposing. This is why I'm not a Republican, listeners. I cannot be a Republican. Eventually, you know, maybe when I'm 60 or 80, I will be. But right now, in today's climate, Republicans are against health care for everybody. They're against Planned Parenthood. They're more likely to be against gay rights and transgender rights.
They're against Social Security. They want to
privatize that.
Exactly, which would be, I think, a disaster.
Yeah.
In my opinion. And now I hear Trump's taking $3 million off of the, 3 million people are, what's the numbers?
Facts on the ground.
But it's, well, yeah, I'm trying to get facts on the ground, but I don't quite have them straight. But basically, the Trump administration is saying, I think it's, I want to say food stamps, but some social program for poor people, and they're getting rid of a bunch of, they're taking away a bunch of money from the program.
That's what Republicans
do. That's what they do.
Yeah.
They want smaller government. To them, that's smaller government. That's more freedom, apparently.
Yeah. Well, another one from Reagan was the 7 evil words. I'm from the government and I'm here to help, or whatever it was. You remember this
that sounds
catchphrase?
Familiar, yes.
Yeah. It's
government. People act like the government's not the people. These are people that represent us. People we voted for. People we put in office. People from our state, our county, our the area our representative represents. You know what I mean?
Well, Republicans, it seems they want elections to occur, and then after the election, for the government to just disappear.
Something like that.
Gone,
it's weird,
and
isn't
have
it?
no impact on
I want the government
whatsoever.
there to build roads and bridges, and I want the government there to make sure our water's clean and our air is as clean as it can be, and to lead us into the future, have some forward-thinking thoughts about solar and clean energy and
how about
sustainability.
Some cheap insulin for diabetes sufferers here in America.
And how about getting off the foreign oil dependency?
Well, we're heading the right direction in that arena. America's oil production has skyrocketed. The past,
we still got.
Unless I'm reading,
we still got
fake
Iran
news headlines.
surrounded, dude, and we're still starting to beat the drums of war.
Yeah,
why are we going to war with Iran? Because they've got oil. Why did we want to almost march into Venezuela? Because they have oil. We're still pretty dependent on it.
You know what? I think oil is actually a small part of it.
Really?
Yeah, I think Republicans want wars because of the military-industrial complex.
Because that's how we manufacture.
If we're building all these fucking planes and tanks and bombs and guns and smart missiles, we got to use them.
Huge part of our economy, man.
It's
that's another area I want to do a little more homework. What states are all these bombs and bullets and guns being built in? I'm kind of curious about that now.
Yeah, you can bet we're not outsourcing that.
I'll bet you most
right
of them are Republican states.
I would guess that.
I'm guessing. I don't know. I'm going to try and do some research and get back to you on that one.
Might be right here in beautiful Utah. Wouldn't surprise me at all.
Could be. Could be.
There's a lot of open space in Utah where we don't know what's going on. A lot of it.
Like Nevada, yeah. Huh.
Well, man, Joe, what a great night, man.
It's been a good night. We kind of bounced around, talked about a lot of different things.
It's been great.
Raised some good questions. I have some research to do.
Yeah, we both do. Please, Christopher Hitchens, Main Joe, and listeners, please listen to Christopher Hitchens debate Mark Danner on the Iraq War. It did not shift me 180 degrees, but it did, soften. I don't like that word soften either, but it did make me challenge why I so fully oppose the Iraq War. It made me challenge. It made me feel challenged.
We're not wordsmiths. We're average Joes talking to you from Mojo Studio in the great city of Salt Lake, the beautiful valley.
Indeed.
Having a good time trying to figure this stuff out, asking questions, getting clarification.
Please let us know down below, and if you want to join us sometime, come over and sit in.
or remotely phone in.
Yeah.
We can do that here.
Yeah.
And we'd love to have you on the show. If you've got stories to tell, like
some different opinions, different
love to hear
takes.
Until next time.
Thank you again.